So tonight we do these workshops or this series of talks once every couple months. And this one is specifically based on nutrition, gut health. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. This was my inspiration for this workshop, is this little girl had a series of gut issues growing up, and from just cramping, discomfort from eating different foods, and then it led to some different bouts of anxiety because she had that, and then she also had some challenges with her bowel movements, and it became just a cycle of things where she was not comfortable to be able to go out with other kids if it was a birthday party or just going for a sleepover because of those discomforts that would come up for her. Let's go up to the next slide, please. All right. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the gut-brain connection. So it's called the gut-brain axis. And just to get a sense of where we're all at right now. For us, it's Lent. So we're actually working on a little bit of fasting. Anybody else doing any kind of fasting right now? No? Okay. Okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But that just brings a little bit more of an awareness around food with this workshop. So the gut-brain axis is the connection between the brain and the gut. And what we now know is that they both have a strong influence on each other. So before we just used to think, the nervous system was controlling the gut. We didn't realize it's a feedback loop. And a lot of what's going on in your gut is actually influencing and affecting your brain too. So let's go back or to the next slide, please, Zoe. And so what can happen if there's any kind of failure or interference in that pathway between the two is a lot of different issues. And so from the gut perspective, we can have things like pain, gas, bloating, a lot of belching, or nausea, diarrhea, constipation, cramping. It is so many things, heartburn, vomiting. And I see this a lot with different patients who come in. So for example, pregnant moms, common thing for them will be, what's one of the symptoms? Heartburn, nausea. Those two things often come up. And it's amazing. Well, we'll talk about that later, how we can have an effect with that. But so those are some of the issues that come up in terms of our gut and how we're feeling. Some of the issues that come up with the brain when there's an imbalance in that or interference in the signals getting up to the brain include stress. So it can affect our mood. And that's including stress, anxiety, a lot of fatigue. Some people experience things like brain fog, mood swings, depression, even can get as extreme as with children. We see this a lot. There's an association between how they're functioning from a cognitive level to how their gut is in terms of health. So that's why we have down as well autism spectrum and ADHD. And then we're also seeing it with some of our older population too, how it can have an effect in terms of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's too. Completely connected with the gut. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Thanks, Zoe. So how are they connected? Well, you all know what we do here. Obviously the nervous system. And so the nervous system is connecting the brain through to, and when I say the gut, do you have a sense of what I'm talking about? What organs actually make up the gut? Intestines, yeah. So the small intestines and the large intestines. We're also including in there the stomach too, because that has to do with digestion as well. So when I'm talking about the gut, I'm talking about all of those things. And so the nervous system has a direct line with the gut, and there's a specific nerve that can, and this is also more recent that we know this now well. Anybody know what that nerve is called? Starts with a V. Vagus nerve, one of the cranial nerves, the vagus nerve. And so because there's a direct connection, it's really important that we keep that vagus nerve really healthy and not interfered with. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So the other way that they're connected is by chemicals, hormones. And so there's certain things called neurotransmitters that are produced in the gut. And those are basically messengers that go right up to the brain and can have an effect on the brain. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And then the other way they're connected is your microbiome. And so it's funny when I see people with, not funny, but when I see people with hand sanitizers, that's supposed to just kill off all the bacteria. right, on our hands. We need bacteria, and we need it in our bodies, in our gut, and we need it on our skin. It protects us. So there's healthy bacteria and there's unhealthy bacteria. The challenge with those sanitizers is it kills everything. We want to be just, keeping our hands clean and getting rid of unhealthy, but we don't need to kill everything, because when you wipe it all out, similar to taking antibiotics, it's really hard and takes a long time to build up the healthy microbiome again. And when I say microbiome, it's not just bacteria. It also includes things like viruses, fungi. Those are all a part of us. They're swimming around as we're breathing. They're everywhere we touch, everywhere we go, and they're inside us. And a lot of us are, not a lot, some of us could be scared of them, but we need those. Those are really important. So that makes up our microbiome, and it helps tremendously in terms of our digestion. We need that. We need those in there. All right, next one. So getting back to those neurotransmitters, those are that we call them happy chemicals when they're working well, because they're produced by the gut. Two of them specifically are called serotonin and dopamine. And when our gut is producing those in a healthy amount, those are messengers that are sent up, chemicals sent up to the brain, and they give us a sense of ease, pleasure, happiness. And so serotonin specifically controls sleep, controls your appetite, and also has to do with pain. So if there's not enough of that being produced in the gut, you can see how the brain's going to be affected. It's a deficiency in serotonin. So we're going to have to start to have some imbalances there, maybe some challenges with sleep, maybe some challenges with digestion, some challenges in terms of being more in a more painful state. Deficiency can also lead to anxiety. And 90 to 95% of serotonin is actually produced in the gut, nowhere else in the body. So that's why it's so important that we make sure we have really healthy gut-brain axis connection. And dopamine is the other one, and that has to do with motivation and pleasure. So it has to also to do with learning and focus. So what we find, or what we see a lot with kids too, is when there's a decrease in amount of dopamine getting up to the brain, it can affect focus. So the brain's focusing because there's a deficiency of that chemical getting up to the brain. And not just with kids, we see it with adults too, all ages. But we're seeing that a lot with specific things with kids, especially with ADHD and other some syndromes like that. All right, let's go to the next slide. So you had mentioned the vagus nerve, and that's directly connecting from the brain down through the body to a lot of different organs, but I want to specifically target here the stomach and the large intestine and the small intestine. And it helps, bless you, sorry, Joe. It helps to regulate the digestive system. All right, so the next one, Zoe, thanks. And why we focus on the vagus nerve here in our office and as chiropractors is because that vagus nerve is right in the very top of the neck and travels down. And where it is in the top of the neck is very close to the top vertebra in the neck. And so if there's any slight misalignment there that's affecting the vagus nerve, that can affect digestion and can affect how the vagus nerve is controlling a lot of different functions in different organs in the body. So that's why we focus a lot on that upper area to make sure that's clear, there isn't any pressure or interference on the vagus nerve. All right, next one, Zoe. So now we're going to get into what are some of the strategies for what we can do to make sure that our gut-brain health is improving, more healthy. One of those things is probiotics. And are you all familiar with probiotics? Awesome. So probiotics is basically helping increase the healthy microbiome in your gut. So remember, we have bacteria, everything's inside. Healthy bacteria, we want to help promote that. Probiotics helps to increase that. And so do you have some ideas of different foods where you would find probiotics in? Because some people say, oh, I'll just take probiotics, a supplement. But what foods naturally are we going to find probiotics in? Yogurt, definitely. Yogurt, especially good healthy yogurt that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. Awesome. Anything else you can think of?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut, yeah. Dill pickles. Good stuff. You're looking at the picture, yeah. Awesome. So also kefir. Is anybody familiar with that, or anybody drink kefir as well? Okay, good stuff. You don't love it. Miso. Anybody eat miso? It's like a paste. It's in some Japanese foods. They add it to soup often and different dishes for flavoring. But it's like a fermented soybean paste that is also very healthy. Anything that's been fermented is basically not anything, but a lot of foods that are fermented are healthy. So that includes kombucha. The challenge with kombucha is a lot of them have so much sugar in them. So that's something we have to watch out for too.
The miso also is no good for people with thyroid issues.
Right. And that especially those who have thyroid issues that are on certain medications, that's where we have to watch out for things too. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And there's something called prebiotics as well. Have you heard of prebiotics? No. Okay, so prebiotics is something that it's the fibrous part of food that we eat, certain foods, that directly feeds your microbiome. So remember, we want your microbiome to be healthier. So there's certain things that can promote the health of the microbiomes. And that specifically is actually some of the things we use to flavor our foods. So one of them is garlic. Another one is onions. And there's a list there, things like leeks, barley, bananas, but all of those things are considered prebiotics. So if you can increase your intake of those things, that also helps build up a healthy microbiome. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. One of the things we want to decrease, obviously decrease compared to the other slides, is processed foods. And processed foods, it's so easy to think of them as energy dense because they give us, especially the ones that have a lot of sugar in them, they give us this energy quick boost, but then you get a quick zip down crash right afterwards because they're so lacking in nutrients and nutritional value. And so that's something we want to make sure we're working on reducing. The more we can eat foods in their whole healthy state, the better. Once something is packaged, it's just gone down in nutritional value. And unfortunately, and you can see from a lot of the foods in the pictures there, they're chemically made to be addictive too. And so once you eat those, you want to eat more of those, and you get on this cycle where you're just not eating healthy food because by eating them, you want to eat more of them. So that's something. Oh, something also included in this list is artificial sweeteners. So those are things like, I don't know if anybody still uses those in their coffee. Aspartame, yeah, saccharin, those things are not healthy because they're just chemicals. If you're going to eat sugar, I say go for the just regular sugar, yeah, rather than those artificial sweeteners because those are straight chemicals. And then if you can even stay away from refined sugar and move more into things like honey to sweeten things, that's just bringing it a higher level as well. Stevia too. All right, and then another thing to try and reduce as well is oils. What kind of oils do you usually use in terms of what you cook with? Olive oil is great. Coconut oil is great. Awesome. So we want to stay away from the processed seed oils like the canola oils, the sunflower, safflower oils. Okay, so if you can, my friends, reduce it somewhat. Coconut oil is a good alternative because those are the omega-6s in them, so it's very high, and that's not healthy for the body. What we want to do is actually increase omega-3s, which are much healthier in terms of oils, and that's more in fish oils. All right, so then what are some of the healthy foods we can take in instead? And I just discussed that a little bit. Things that are rich in omega-3s, things that are rich in antioxidants and phytonutrients. And this is a list of some of those things. But nuts, definitely, seeds in their healthy form. So that's where they have not been, roasted and added a lot of additives, but more nuts where they're just whole healthy nuts, close to the earth kind of form. Leafy greens also are really healthy. If we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So another strategy for making sure that your gut health is improving is looking at stress. And so it's funny. I talked to my dad once about stress, and he said, "Oh, I retired. I have no stress." Everybody has stress. It just comes in different forms. And so stress, because we all have it, we can't say let's reduce it because you can't get rid of it. But what you can do is you can change how you react to stress. And so that's what we're talking about right here. There's some different examples, but one of those is prayer. One of those is meditation. One of those is I put down Bible study because that's where we're at right now in terms of Lent. It's trying to do a little bit of that every day. Journaling, time in nature. So there's so many things, and everybody has their own things that they like to do that helps them to work through stress. But I do like the meditation part because that focuses also on breathing. There's actually a patient who just started care with us, and one of the biggest changes, improvements she's noticing is, I don't know if y'all notice when we adjust you, we ask you to breathe in, breathe out. For so long, she's been so stressed and tight in her body that she's not taken deep breaths. And this has been chronic for a long time. And so it's not now that she's focusing a little bit more on breathing, she's noticing what an effect that's having. And just that simple little thing can help your body to deal with the stresses that come up. So breathing is very important. Sleep. And I put this up here because that's one of our workshops that's coming up. I'll promote it because Zoe's promoting it too. Sleep Well is going to be in a few months, I think. We do a workshop on just specifically on sleep itself. I'll touch on just a few things with sleep because that affects our gut health. When we're not getting good, healthy sleep, it decreases our microbiome. So that's why it's also really important we're getting our regular hours of sleep each night. And the more we can get consistent with it, I know it's tough for people who are on shift work, but the more we can get consistent with going to bed at a similar time, rising at a similar time really, really helps. And then also our wind down time before we sleep. Because I still have different patients sharing, I can't get to sleep, and lots of thoughts going on in my head. So that wind down time, about a half hour before you sleep, is so important. It's really important, especially for parents with their kids, helping them to wind down. Because we want to just, whether it's dimming the lights, drinking something warm like tea, making sure we're not on our devices, any kind of blue screen time, that's really unhealthy right before sleep. And it's amazing how much that'll help you with resting, getting a good, healthy sleep. And yeah, I think that's a key one for a lot of us is the phone. If we can make sure that we're shutting it off, and not just shutting it off, but turning the internet off on it too, so we're not getting any Wi-Fi, it's not close to us where we're sleeping, and just putting that aside during our wind down time. Awesome. Movement. Another strategy for your gut brain health is making sure you get healthy movement. And that's another thing we notice when our different patients are getting adjusted. They feel better in their body, so they start getting into exercise more regularly. And I was just adjusting somebody tonight who got a little off track again because some things happened family-wise. She'd started walking regularly. And it's amazing when you do those things where it's regular movement, how that's helping you have a healthy gut too. And it makes sense because as you move, your circulation is healthier, your nervous system is healthier, and that's helping with your digestion. So that's very important. And the fifth strategy, and this is obviously something we're going to talk about here, is making sure you get adjusted regularly. And that's because we want to make sure your nervous system, which is connecting your brain with the stomach and your brain with the small and the large intestine, that there's no interference in that pathway. As an example, a pregnant mom that I just adjusted yesterday, she was sharing how much she's enjoying her adjustments because she doesn't have nausea anymore, and it was affecting her through pregnancy. And we're adjusting that upper area, vagus nerve, and we're adjusting that mid-back area that goes right into the stomach. And and also her heartburn is improving too. So it's amazing how when we address those areas where there's nerve interference, it's going to affect those areas directly. Another thing we see that is with babies. So when they adjust little ones, sometimes their parents bring them in because they haven't pooped in a number of days, especially the really little ones. And it's amazing when we do an adjustment, it's like almost instantaneous, immediate that they release. So when that nervous system is wound up, we do an adjustment, it unwinds, and the digestive system is allowed to just work. It's a beautiful. It's such an instantaneous thing with babies. It's
You wonder why babies are uptight.
oh, that's like a whole other workshop, but it can be because this area of the spine is out of alignment, and we see that a lot from unhealthy births these days, whether that's births where there's a lot of pulling involved, or cesareans where they have to pull against gravity, or where they use devices like forceps or vacuum extraction. Their little tiny necks get pulled out of alignment, and so that's amazing how such a simple thing when we adjust that they can have a regular digestive movement, bowel movement again. So yeah, if we can go to the next slide. I'll go through these quickly because you already have a good sense of this, but nerve function, we want to make sure that anywhere where the spine is out of alignment, that we're restoring that alignment. That just helps with healthy nerve flow getting through. And with the digestive system, the most key areas, I think we pointed to them. So is that upper area because of the vagus nerve, that mid area because those nerves go right around to the stomach, and that lower area because the nerves go right around to the lower intestine. And it's amazing how many people when we ask during a consultation as a new patient who came in with low back pain, do you have constipation? Do you have difficulties going to the bathroom? It's almost like 100% when they have that area is subluxated there and they have low back pain. And it's amazing how when we start to adjust that area, that starts to unwind. And I think Mary France was a good example of that too. Awesome. All right, let's go to the next slide. So chiropractic, when we adjust the spine, also activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Anybody know what the parasympathetic nervous system is? Okay, so I'll just briefly explain. Your autonomic nervous system, which is working as you're sitting here, so you don't even have to think about it. If you just ate, your stomach's digesting while you sit here. Or if you haven't eaten, you're thinking about food. Your digestive system might be telling you that, but also your lungs are breathing, your heart's beating. All those things are happening automatically. So we call it our autonomic nervous system. There's two different branches of that. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and one is the parasympathetic. And that's what we have indicated here is the parasympathetic, because that's us in our more calm state. And so, for example, when we adjust some kids where the nervous system is so wound up, and these are little toddlers, when they have an adjustment, they move into a more calm state. We're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Make sense? And it's amazing how that also helps them with their focus ability, and their ability to focus when that's better helps them also with school and things like that too. And the reason I often talk about pregnancy and kids is because that's one of my specialties. I love working with pregnant moms and with kids. All right, so let's go to the next one. Chiropractic can also help reduce stress. And so that's the same thing when the nervous system is wound up. Our body's in a state of stress. And so anything that comes at us might agitate us and we feel more anxious. But when we're in a more relaxed state through the nervous system, those things, different stresses that come at us don't agitate us as much. All right, next one. And then we already talked about that, but you can see actually in the picture here. So this is the very top bone in the neck called the atlas. And it's called that because it's where the brain, which is round, Atlas, the mythological figure, actually held up. Yes, exactly. And so that's like the skull, the brain is the world sitting right on top of Atlas. And then the nerves here, the yellow ones coming down, those tiny little thin nerves, those are the vagus nerves. So you can imagine how when Atlas is just even slightly out of alignment, that's going to put tension in the vagus, around the vagus nerve. And that's where, when we do adjustment, it's amazing how much can be better controlled in the body with the vagus nerve working better. All right, so the next one. All right, so I'll come back to this little girl. It wasn't until she was in her 20s as a student that she discovered chiropractic. She started getting adjusted, and there were specific areas of her spine that were out of alignment in this lower area, and this area, especially the upper neck region. She started getting adjusted, and those discomforts she was having with her gut and her bowels, all of that cleared up. And the reason that is inspirational for me is because that was actually me. That was one of the things that helped improve my life when I got into chiropractic when I was in my 20s. Awesome. So if we can go to the next one. BJ Palmer was an amazing chiropractor, the developer of chiropractic. And this is his quote: "We never know how far reaching something we may think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow." And the reason I bring that up is because if you can think of anybody that you're inspired by from hearing this, who's either having some digestive issues or whatever it is, because we talked about so many different symptoms, but if you can let them know about chiropractic and wherever they are, we can refer them to see somebody. But if they've never been checked before, it's amazing how much that can have an impact on whatever symptoms they're going through. If we go to the next slide, and that's just some pictures of us and in our office and different people to see. And actually, go back to the other ones, Zoe. So yeah, thanks guys for being here. I know sometimes I kind of go through things quickly, but I'm also here if you have any questions or if you want to go back to anything specifically in terms of gut health and that brain and gut connection.